Okay, continuing in terminology, we just looked at the last in size and the change and percentage change. This is the open. Now again, this isn't rocket science, I'm just making definitions. The opening price is the first trade at 9:30 on the NASDAQ, and of course it's the first trade at 9:30 or a little bit after if it's a New York stock. Remember, the New York Stock Exchange opens at 9:30, but if there's a trade imbalance, the first trade may not go off until 9:35 or 9:40. Okay, so this is just the opening price. It does not include extended hours. Now, extended hours in New York time is 8 o'clock in the morning to 9:30, and then from 4 o'clock until 7 p.m. East Coast time. This opening price is set by the regular hours at 9:30. Okay, and as you're about to see, the close is set by the regular close at 4 o'clock. So here's the previous close. This is yesterday's close, and again, it's the last trade as of 4 p.m. East Coast time yesterday. It does not include extended hours, and then the word up there is yet. Okay, why? Because we are going to a global market, people. It'll only be a couple of years before we are trading 24/6 probably, just like the futures and Forex trades. Those trade around the clock. So, eventually there'll be a time when you can get up at 2 o'clock in the morning, wherever you are, and trade Microsoft if that's what you want to do. I'm not going to. I'll be in bed. I'm an old guy. Yeah.
NASDAQ stocks, will they gap open or close?
Yep. All stocks gap up and down. Okay, but of course, if we go to 24/6, we'll probably see very little gapping, okay, because it'll be 24 hours a day. We'll see weekend gaps, and of course, if something really exciting happens, we'll see it intraday, but it'll be a 24-hour day. So if it's continuous, there can't be a gap per se. Can't be an opening gap because there's no closes.
Because the computer's just doing it, there's not a guy doing an auction thing. How does that happen?
How does what happen?
How does it close at 5:57 and open at 5:60?
It's the last trade at 4 o'clock now. I'm saying if we go to 24/6, there will be no opening and closes. It's 24 hours a day.
I understand that. I'm
Okay.
saying the way it is now.
The way it is now. It's the last trade at 4 o'clock. Okay, are there trades from 4 o'clock to 7 o'clock? Yes, that's extended hours. Extended hours, guys.
That has to do with the NASDAQ as well as...
Yep, it has to do with stocks. Okay? Extended hours. Okay, we have from 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time to 9:30 a.m. And then from 9:30 to 4 is regular, huh? So this is the morning extended hours, and then we have from 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to 7 p.m. And this is the afternoon extended hours. Regular hours are 9:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The opening trade, as shown right now on a level 1, is the first trade at or near 9:30. Okay, if it's New York, it could be 9:35, it could be 9:40 because of a trade imbalance. It's the first trade recorded on NASDAQ at 9:30. It is the last trade recorded between 4 and 4:01 on NASDAQ or New York. Okay, it has nothing to do with extended hours. Now, extended hours have only been around for what, 4 years now? Alrighty. So did stocks gap up or down before? Yeah, sure. Again, it's just a valuation. Is there more demand or more supply the next morning? That's what changes the price. However, with extended hours, we start to see that demand and that supply, don't we? Can we check and see that after the market, Dell reports their earnings and they miss it, and there's a lot of people selling in the extended hours? What are we going to suppose the next morning? Is it going to gap up or gap down? It's going to gap down. There's bad news in it. Make you sense?
But because the New York Stock Exchange runs kind of manual process because of the specialists. They don't have that ability to have extended hours though, right?
No, that's true. But now ECNs are trading New York stocks. So,
Right.
you know,
Right, forgot about
so there is some trading, not as heavy in New York, but there is more and more. And again, this is that globalizing effect I was talking about. Ultimately, we'll have one world market. You know, maybe not tomorrow, but you know, we will be going to the point where there won't probably be a New York or a NASDAQ. There'll be the American Universal Stock Exchange, you know, and everybody will you'll be able to get anywhere you want in it. Okay, questions so far?
You pick your stocks mainly from the NASDAQ or from
Again, we will be primarily focusing on NASDAQ because of control. Again, if I have to go through a specialist, I may want to buy it for 10 and he may sell it to his buddy for $9.90. That only makes me mad. I can't get a fill if he doesn't give it to me. On the other hand, with NASDAQ, I can go to any one of you guys and say, let's talk. Let's make a deal. Okay? And I know I'll get filled. And again, I'll demonstrate that for you probably tomorrow. We'll go live and do a little trading live in the morning, and I'll show you the differential. Today we need to do a lot of groundwork. Okay, any challenges with open or previous close? Okay, the high for today, well, it's unofficial at least until 4 o'clock when the market closes. So far, it's as high as it's traded. Can it trade higher? Certainly. Okay, so that's why it's unofficial. They don't put it into the books as the high of the day until the market closes. And of course, the flip side to that would be what? The low. And there's again, it's unofficial. That's as low as it's traded so far. Can it trade lower? Certainly. Okay? But it becomes official when the market closes, and therefore we can use it for our technical analysis. We may find that that low is a very important support line. We may find that that high is a very important resistance line by looking at our charts later. Now, the difference between the high and the low is called the range. On the platform that we're going to be using, we will see it calculated for us. But some platforms, you actually have to subtract the low from the high and see that it's 82 cents. Again, 1712 minus 1630 would be 82 cents. You don't have to be a great rocket scientist or math major. It's nice that this one provides it, but not all platforms tell you what the range is. Okay, so you guys should know what the definition. It's high minus low of the day. Now, I do not want to get in a discussion on shorting, but so that you guys know where it is right now, this green arrow here is called the uptick downtick arrow. And there are certain rules and regulations to shorting. When I refer to it, I just want you to know where it is. Okay, we'll get into all the rules that control it. But basically, I can only sell short when it's on a green uptick arrow, and when it's on a red downtick arrow, then I am not allowed to sell to the bid. Don't worry about it. We'll get into that. Right next to it, on most of the platforms these days, they give you a shortable status. And on this platform, it's very simple. It's yes, no, or call. Okay? Yes, it's completely shortable. Do anything you want. No, you may not short it under any case. And call, well, maybe we can get some for you. Because when you short, you have to borrow stocks. And your brokerage may have a limited supply. So if everybody wants it, they want you to call in to see who gets it first. That make sense? I got 10,000 I got 9,000 to lend, and there's 10 of you, and all of you want to borrow 1,000. One of you isn't going to get some. So you all have to call in to see who calls in first. Okay, we've alluded to this a couple times. Let's talk about it in a little bit more depth. Market makers. Okay? First off, again, they are the membership of the NASDAQ, or the NASD, the National Association of Security Dealers. And as you look up here, we've highlighted Merrill Lynch at the 888s, and you can see them on the ask at the 891s. Ready? They must make a market. That means they must be willing to buy and sell at all times. In fact, they must be on the bid and the ask all the time. Okay? If they're missing From either side, for 5 minutes, they are banned from trading this stock for 20 trading days, which is 1 trading month. Alrighty? Now that means they would lose an awful lot of revenues. They make a lot of money doing this. So they're religious about doing it. But they don't have to be competitive. Okay? They can move away from the inside market and still meet legal obligations. Now I'm going to cut away from the slides here for a second. I'm going to take you out to the platform and I'll show this to you. Now here we have a level 2 box here, and we have that good old, I think that's a Chinese internet stock. And I'm going to make the level 2 box a little bit bigger. And you guys can see that we have about 10 layers of prices and colors, but we have a lot more below. Let's scroll all the way down to the bottom. Does everybody see over here we have somebody called TJAS is bidding $5, and on the other side TJAS is bidding $100. Does he really expect to get filled? No. What he's doing is he doesn't want to trade SINA today, but he wants to be legal to trade it tomorrow. So he has to be here. He has to have a bid and an ask at all times. So he doesn't want to be competitive. He doesn't want to get filled today, but he may be competitive tomorrow or next week. And by being here, he's at least fulfilling legal obligation. Does everybody understand that? And of course, obviously, we can go all the way up to the top, and these are the competitors who are buying and selling right now. Now, we looked at Merrill Lynch here. We can also see that here's another market maker everybody recognizes, Goldman Sachs at 88s, and he's selling it for 90. Okay? So what is he trying to do? He's trying to make 2 cents, isn't he? He's buying it for 88s and he's offering it for sale at 90. Well, Mike, 2 cents isn't much, but you got to remember, Goldman Sachs may turn 100,000 or 1 million shares in a stock. 2 cents times 1 million, people, that's some serious money. Okay, that's really nice. And if they do this all day long, I mean, they can make some real bucks. Now, let's take a quick look around. If you guys work with me here for just a moment. You guys see GVRC here? Okay, is he on this side?
No.
Yes, he is. We just can't see him. He's a market maker. He has to be there. Okay, but we can't see him. Another thing you might want to keep your eye on. Market makers have what they call the firm quote rule. The firm quote rule says they must maintain a bid and an offer for 5 seconds at any given price. So if we look up here and we see Merrill Lynch, he says he's willing to buy 7,700 shares of stock at 88. He must be willing to do that for the next 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Refresh. Now he refreshes seamlessly. We don't see him actually blink off and blink back on. But we know that every 5 seconds, if he's still there, then he says, yes, I'll continue to buy this at this price. I'll continue to buy this at this price. I'll continue to buy this. Every 5 seconds, he's saying that to you. If he's hit for 1 share, he then has the right to change his price and move down or up. Okay? So he has to trade to move, or every 5 seconds he has that decision. Now, needless to say, there's not a guy sitting there with a watch going, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi, 5 Mississippi, refresh, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. No, I mean, it's a computer does it, okay? So as long as the Goldman Sachs trader in Sun Micro says, we're bidding 888s, or excuse me, Goldman Sachs, we're bidding 888s, he just stands there and says, let it go for about 5 minutes, we'll see what happens. And if all of a sudden price starts to collapse, he's going to hit the cancel button as soon as 5 seconds, the next 5 seconds are up. And then he's going to go to a lower price and say, well, we can buy it later for less. Got it? Okay, so.
You said that he was a market maker, right?
That's what we're talking about, market makers, yes.
Well, then I'm a little confused. Isn't everyone on that list a market maker?
No. No, we haven't even gotten into ECNs yet, electronic communication networks, or unlisted trading privileges, which are like MWSE down here. But one step at a time, we'll get there. Okay. Again, as an example, let me see if I can, there's ARCA. Okay. We see ARCA on the left over here, but we do not see them on the right. Well, if he was a market maker, I could make the statement, he must be there, he's just lower. But ARCA isn't a market maker, they're an ECN. I happen to know this, and you will know it by this evening, because you will be memorizing tonight. There's 8 ECNs, okay? Don't worry till we get there, guys, there's 8 of them. Okay, now, let's see, what else? Market makers wear 3 different hats, people. You always have to think about who they are doing and what they are doing it for. First off, they trade for their own accounts. They trade just like you and I do. They're going to buy it for $8, they're going to sell it for $8.10 or $8.50 and make the profit. They sell for retail clientele, for Joe. They take his orders and handle his transactions. And the third hat they wear is that they buy and sell for institutions. Now, institutions are often said to be smart money. I don't know if they're smart, but they're certainly big money, and therefore we have to pay attention to them. So certainly as we start to identify a market maker that associates themselves with institutions, a la Goldman Sachs, okay, we want to keep an eye on them because they're always going to come to the market with large share size. And large share size can move price. Make sense? Yeah. Okay. Questions on market makers? Now the good news is that you guys only have to memorize the ECNs because there's over 500 market makers. Which do you want to do? Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, last few couple of terminologies and we'll take a break here. We have a regular market. Regular market is when the bid is lower than the ask or the ask is higher than the bid. They'd like to buy it low at 31. They'd want to sell it high at 34. That's normal, regular. Okay? The next one, of course, is a locked market. And a locked market is when they wish to buy it at 75 and there's somebody who wishes to sell it for 75 at the same price. The bid and the ask are equal. Well, Mike, how can that happen? My goodness, these people want to buy 75s, and this guy wants to sell a 75. Why don't they get together? Because everybody's electronics are just a hair different. Attain, A-T-T-N up here, is flashing 1275 in his language. But all these guys over here, they don't see it. Okay? He's flashing in green and they're all colorblind to green. Okay? They just can't see him. But more importantly, does it tell us something about this market? I mean, aren't we getting a point where nobody knows which way to go?
Yeah, I think so.
Some are selling it and some are buying it at the same price. Yeah, we're reaching an equilibrium of some kind. And maybe the thing has been going up all day and all of a sudden it hits this and people don't know which way to go. What is the probability? It may turn down, and of course vice versa. What if it was going down most of the day and all of a sudden people wanted to buy it at the same price that other people wanted to sell it for, and maybe it's a bottoming and it's going to turn around to the other side. So it doesn't tell us exactly what to do, but it should bring us up onto the balls of our feet and make us alert. Something's changing. It's not a regular market. Something's happening, okay? And of course, as detectives, we want to know why. So we start looking around. The last one, which is one of the oddest, is what we call a crossed market. A crossed market is when the bid is actually higher than the ask. Now, this is what they call an arbitrator's dream, okay? Why? Well, he can buy it for somebody who wants to sell it for 17 cents, and he can immediately turn around and sell it to somebody who wants to buy it for 21 cents. Now, you can imagine that this doesn't last very long. It says we'll revert to normal very soon. Well, of course somebody's going to take advantage of this. Now, are we going to get real excited by buying 100 shares to make $4, 4 cents on 100 is a $4 make? No. So somebody out there might, but you and I, if I'm paying $5 a commission, and it's going to cost me 10 to make 4, it's not a good deal. You know, if you guys don't understand that, you can line up at the door. I'll give you 50 cents for every dollar bill you bring me. Okay? I don't see you forming the line. Alrighty. So everybody understands that a cross market is irregular, is not common, and it doesn't last long because somebody's going to jump on that like a duck on a June bug. Okay? Okay, a couple more simple things, and we'll finally get to Al's question. A long position. I'm in it for the long haul is where it came from. It was an investing term. So we buy it now with the intention of selling it later. We traders have just shortened up what later is. Okay? Instead of later being a year, later could be a day, or later could be the next minute. But a long position is we buy it low and we sell it high. Okay? A short position is a stock that is sold now with the intention of buying it back later at a lower price. Now, I don't know why this is difficult. The basic rule, if you watch my hands, my right hand is buy low, and the answer to that is sell high. Okay? So if I do this, and I sell high, and I buy low, have I changed the rule, or have I just changed the order? Buy low, sell high, or sell high, buy low. Let me do this in a mathematics demonstration for you. My buddy Ken has 1 share of Microsoft, okay? And I believe, in my wisdom, I'll explain what my wisdom is in a moment, that Microsoft is going to go down. So I go over to Ken's house and I say, Ken, I understand you have a share of Microsoft and that you are going on a world cruise. While you're out on your cruise, may I borrow your share of Microsoft? I promise to give it back to you and buy you a cup of coffee. Everybody with me so far? And Ken, being the nice guy he is, he says, sure, and he lends me a share of Microsoft. Well, I skip off to the market, okay, and I sell the Microsoft. When I sell, what do I receive? Money. Okay, so let's say I sold it for $10. So I have a $10 bill in my hand, huh? Okay, now I happen to know that Microsoft is going down. Why? Well, because I fooled with the brakes on Bill Gates' car. Okay, so now I'm watching CNBC, and sure enough, he blows a tire, swerves, and hits a cow. Okay, Microsoft drops. I then go back to the market. Microsoft is now trading at $5. I have a $10 bill. I give them the $10 bill, they make change, and they hand me back Ken's share of Microsoft and a $5 bill. Ken comes back from his trip. I give him his share of Microsoft. What do I have left in my hand? Put that in my pocket. Wow, I owe him a cup of coffee, don't I? Because I borrowed it, I owe him a little interest. So when we sell short, what we're going to do is borrow shares from our brokerage so that we have something to sell. I don't know if you guys realize this, but if you sell nothing, it's called fraud. Okay. There's some people out there who try this, you know. I got some swampland in Florida I want to talk to you about. Okay, you know. So we got to sell something. We got to sell something legitimate. So we're going to have to borrow it. Now, where did the term short come from? Well, you all have heard this before. Hey, can I borrow $5? I'm a little short today. You know, I'll gladly pay you next Tuesday for a hamburger today. Wasn't that Wimpy on Popeye? Yeah. He was a little short. He was always short for hamburger money. You ready? So we're going to borrow it from our brokerage. We're going to sell it to the market with the intention of giving it back. If we don't give it back, that's called grand theft. So you have to sell something or it's fraud. And if you don't give it back, then it's grand theft. You ready? So we buy it back, hopefully make a profit, return it to our brokerage, and they charge us interest. Now, if you guys know anything about retirement plans, SEPs, IRAs, 401ks, you know that there's a law that says you cannot borrow money against them. Okay? Therefore, if you're going to trade inside a retirement plan, you can't short, not because they don't let you short, but because you're not allowed to borrow. And the only way you can short is to borrow. It's kind of a catch-22, huh? So in an IRA or a 401k, you can only buy long, go to cash, buy long, go to cash, buy long, go to cash. In a regular market with a regular margin account, we can borrow stock, sell short, buy cover, sell short, buy cover, sell short. People, there's only 2 or 3 two-sided markets in the world. You have one. If you go to Japan, you can't sell short Sony. Okay? If you go to London, you can't sell short the London Bridge. I don't know what I can't think of a stock. Okay? So there's only a couple of markets where we can do this. You might as well take advantage. Yes, sir.
Is there a time limit you have to replace it?
Yes and no, and we'll get into all the rules of it. But basically, on a large cap like Cisco, nah, you can keep it as long as you want. Now, if it's a thinly traded, what if Ken comes home early from his trip and he wants a share back? Well, I have to give it back to him. It's his. So he could call the stock. Well, I sold it for 10 and it's right now 11. Ken comes back and says, I want my share back. I say, bud, okay. So I have to go out and I have to pay 11 for it. I only got 10, so it cost me an extra $1 out of my pocket. And I still owe him a cup of coffee. Okay?
Brokerage, they would do that?
Sure. Oh, a broker loves to have you transact.
So you could assume that they're going to do that then?
If they have the shares available, they will help you short. Why? Every transaction you make
You
it.
meant call.
They would call.
Oh, they might. They might.
I mean, what would be an incentive for them not to? Make money.
They make more money the longer you have it out there. They're making more interest on the borrowed money.
But if they called and I had to pay the extra $1,
Well, if it went up, yeah.
that too, right?
Well, they may, yeah, they may, if they're the market maker in it, yeah. They may also make that dollar, too. But you may be, as a direct access, you can go to the general market. You don't have to buy it back from them. Okay? Let's talk about risk and shorting, just real brief. I'll go over it again, but I want to make sure you guys are real clear on this. If I buy a $5 stock and it goes to zero, it goes bankrupt, how much money do I lose? $5. Okay? If I short a $5 stock and it goes up to $10, how much do I lose? What if it goes to 15? What if it goes to 100? You see the difference? Zero is zero. That's as far as it can fall, but a short could go all the way up. Does that mean it's unlimited risk? Well, yeah, if you're drooling on your keyboard. What are you, asleep at the switch? If I buy a stock for $5 and it goes down to $4.90 and I don't like it, I'm going to get my $4.90 out of it and only lose a dime. If I short the same stock at $5 and it goes up to $5.10, I'm going to buy it back for $5.10 and take that dime loss. My risk is still a dime either way, as long as I do something, as long as I honor my stops. Whatever those stops are. Maybe it's not a dime, maybe it's $1, maybe it's 25 cents, maybe it's 33.5. I don't know, but I have to draw a line in the sand somewhere, don't I? Would I just let it go up and up and up to it? Well, like I say, unless I was crazy, or unless I was Joe Lunchbucket. Does Joe do those things all the time? Maybe one or two of you have let things get out of hand. You bought it and watched it go down and said, maybe it'll come back. And maybe's a long time away, isn't it? Okay, good. Now, again, we're going to get into an awful lot on shorting. We've talked a little bit about the market makers, and I've mentioned the term ECN, Electronic Communication Networks. Who are these guys? Well, these make up the players in the market participants. You remember this morning when we talked, I put up MPID, the Market Participant Identifier. Okay? Now we're going to look at them a little bit more closely. There's a list of people up here. We have the market makers and the ECNs. These guys make up the majority of the market. But then there's always little exceptions to the rules. These are called UTPs, or unlisted trading privileges, non-reporting agencies, ADFN, which stands for, my goodness, Alternate Display Facility NASDAQ. And I'll explain what all these mean. And then we even have another marketplace that leaks through, and we can see this other marketplace through the market identifier called size, S-I-Z-E. So let's start stepping into these. We've talked about the market makers already. Let's go in and talk a little bit about ECNs, which is Trading's Direct Access. ECN stands for Electronic Communication Network. Now, when we talked about level 2 earlier today, I told you guys that it was the leftovers of the market. If you remember, Trisha's selling 50s, Ken's buying 50s, the trade's done. He's selling 51s, he's buying 51s, the trade's done. We don't have any leftovers until we have a difference of opinion. In this case, Julio was selling 52s and David wanted to buy 51s. Uh-oh, we have a difference of opinion. Now, if these guys can't kiss and make up and make the deal, then their only alternative is to turn outward and find somebody else to trade with, right? So they need to be able to post their needs. They need to advertise that he wants to buy 51s and Julio wants to sell 52s. Where would you do that? Well, you do it on NASDAQ, on the bid and the ask. Well, Mike, I'm not a market maker. How do I get on NASDAQ? Well, an ECN, and let's change this up here. The Electronic Communication Network is nothing but an electronic bulletin board. If you will, it's like a mini NASDAQ. What if Ken, Cy, and I all decided we wanted to form a trading club? And we'll call it the Kenometer, okay? And our symbol would be KEN on the NASDAQ. And we are going to create this club, and we're going to trade amongst ourselves. And then we go and we turn to NASDAQ and we say, well, if I trade to Cy and Cy sells to Ken and Ken buys from Mike and Mike buys from, and we go back and forth. If we do it all legally, if everything is exactly the same as you do it on NASDAQ, will you accept our trades? And NASDAQ says, okay, for a fee. Everything's done for a fee, okay? So now the three of us start trading amongst ourselves, and we're happy. Our prints are coming through on the NASDAQ and all that. But aren't we getting kind of bored trading amongst ourselves? So we need to be able to be seen by the rest of the world. So then we go to NASDAQ and say, well, can we put our symbol, KEN, up on level 2? And then the world can see us, and if they want to come and buy and sell to us, they can. Can? Okay? So, of course, what are they going to do? For a fee. And suddenly we show up on level 2. So now we can trade amongst ourselves, but other people can see us and come and trade with us, so we have a larger audience. Isn't that what a merchant wants? We agreed we were merchants. We need to advertise, and if we can go to a larger audience, we have more potential clients, right? So that's what an ECN is. It certainly allows us to get better quoted prices. Now, you guys don't appreciate this, but as little as probably 1995 or even 96, okay, the spread in stocks, it was not unusual to find 50-cent spreads or even dollar spreads. It's hard to imagine today that Cisco, imagine 22 bid, 23 offered. How much money were the market makers making? They sold it for 23 and they would buy it back from you for 22, a dollar spread. Well, the ECNs, you and me, we got in there and we said, well, 22 by 23, I'll make it 22 and a half. Bill in the back says, okay, I'll make it 22 and 3/4. Well, suddenly we took that dollar, now it's only 25 cents. Julio comes along and looks at Bill's price and said, to heck with that, I'm going to offer it out at 22.60. I'm at 22 and a half, we got a 10-cent spread. It's getting narrower. Pretty soon we keep arguing and keep cutting prices, and it's 22.50 by 22.51, a 1 penny spread. Who made out on this with these narrow spreads? The public at large. Instead of buying it at 23 and selling it at 22, they can now, because of us, buy it at 22.51 and sell it at 22.50. Okay? Obviously, what did we do here? We negotiated. We started at a dollar spread and narrowed it all the way down to a penny. At first, 25 or 50 cents at a time, sometimes a nickel, down all the way down to a penny. So we have the ability to negotiate. This gives us the same power as a market maker. Can we go in and bid to buy at the inside market just like Goldman Sachs or Merrill Lynch? Sure we can. Okay? Can we place an offer to sell at full retail just like Bear Stearns or Lehman Brothers? Yes, we can. In fact, we have virtually all the power of a market maker without the responsibility. We don't have to be on both sides, guys. I can just be a buyer all day long, and tomorrow I can be a seller. I don't have to be balanced. I don't have to be on both sides. I don't have to hold my order up there for 5 seconds. One of my favorite keys is the cancel button. Gosh, where do you see this tomorrow? You're going to go nuts. Okay? When you hit a cancel on yours, you have to wait, and it says cancel sent, cancel pending, cancel pending, cancel pending, cancel pending, canceled. Huh, I'm out, finally. Whew. Here, you hit a button, and you see the lights go off on the NASDAQ. You know you're out of the market. I mean, it's just that quick. You go click, it's done. You're sitting there shown, or you're out. There's no in-between. There's no pending. Why is it penned? So they can handle your order. So they can reroute all this information. If you're going direct, you're in or you're out, just like that. And that control is incredible, gives great confidence. So we have the powers of a market maker. I don't have as much money, but I certainly have the same opportunities that Merrill Lynch or Goldman Sachs or Smith Barney have. Okay? How did this all come about? Well, in 1997, we went through a whole series of, we'll call them lawsuits. Let's say we went to the courts and asked them to make judgments on certain things. I want you to think about something. Humans have certain inalienable rights. Certainly here in the United States, most things being equal, everybody has the right to vote. Okay? And we created subsets of ourselves. These are called corporations. A corporation is a legal entity that has certain rights, but a corporation can't vote for a president. It can buy one, but it can't vote for one. Okay? That's a different story. Okay? But it can't vote, right? But it's a legal entity. It pays taxes, it can buy houses, it can sell cars, it can do almost anything we can within reason. Okay? Well, the brokerage business was kind of just the opposite, people. The brokerage business was strictly corporations, and the individual didn't have any rights. So they went to court, and I say they, it was the Electronic Traders Association, went and asked the SEC and a couple of different federal courts, why is it that we cannot post our bids and our offers in an exchange? And everybody started scratching their heads. Because if a corporation can do it, certainly a man, a woman, a human being can do it. And that's what they found out. Now, we still had to get over the hurdle of what? Having a license to trade real property. Okay? But the direct access trading brokerages took care of that. They lent us their license, if you will. It's not exactly a lend, but you'll get the idea. This changed everything in 1997, and if you will, that was the birth of direct access trading. But actually, ECNs have been around for a long time. How many people have ever heard of the term Instanet? If you watch any financial news, you've said, and now we'll cut to the Instanet trading floor, okay? Well, Instanet shows up as INCA, I-N-C-A, as an ECN. And their very name, Insta, stood for institutional trading. And if you wanted to be on INCA, you had to have a share size of at least 25,000 shares. Well, I don't know about you and me, but that cuts out the riffraff. I'm riff and you're raff, okay? Very rarely am I ever trading 25,000 shares in one trade, okay? But the point being is that they've been around for a long time. After 1997, even Inca had to lower their things to allow us in. So we can now trade 100 round lots, 100 share round lots on Inca, because they can't discriminate against us just because we're not big enough. Okay? I mean, we've kept broken down virtually every barrier there is out there, isn't there? I mean, No ethnic, no religious, no sex, no age, okay? And why shouldn't we be allowed to trade? So these are the things that have made the change. Some of the other ECNs started up in the early 90s, Island notably, Attain, ATTN. You're going to learn all the symbols here in just a moment. These guys got all started up because if one could do it, every share that passes through an ECN makes money for the owner of the ECN. There's a toll. Every share that passes through, they get 1/100 of a cent or 1,000th of a cent. And if millions pass through, that adds up to significant money. Okay? So they popped up. At one point, we were all the way up to about 12 ECNs that were operational. Now, since the bear market of 2000, there's been a lot of acquisition and merger, a lot of consolidation, and we have 8 of them. Actually, we have 7. I'll show you that in a moment. Now, do you guys all understand that if we are here on the Ken ECN, Cy, Ken, and myself, and we're trading, if I go from my computer to Ken's computer, I'm pretty quick, aren't I? I don't have to go to NASDAQ. After the trade's done, we'll report it to NASDAQ. So the fastest of all executions is membership to membership. If I have ARCA and I see ARCA on level 2 and I match their price, boys and girls, I can't get my finger off the button before I'm filled. I mean, you're filled that fast. You just can't get your finger off the button. No matter how fast you're already filled if you match. I said to a class, I said, this is instantaneous. And of course, I had an attorney in the class. He said, no, you can say virtually instantaneous, but you can't say, okay, virtually instantaneous. It is certainly the fastest of executions. Does this give us great flexibility? I can be on Island on the bid. I can be on ARCA at the ask. I can go way low. I can go way high. I can cancel anytime I want. I can be the guy that wasn't there. I can join with my friends and we can present on a united front. Okay? I can even become a puffer fish. How many people know what a puffer fish is? I'm a diver. Okay? You go out in the South Pacific. They're little fishes. They're called porcupine puffers. They're usually about this big. And if you shake one, you get them all agitated. He swells up. He gets about the size of a basketball with spikes. You can't swallow him. Nobody can swallow him. No, completely unappetizing. Okay? But there's nothing there either. It's just this thin membrane with these filled with water. Well, what if I were a member of ARCA, Inca, and Island? What if I went out, instead of putting 600 shares on Island, I put 200 shares on Inca, 200 shares on Island, and 200 shares on ARCA, and bid to buy? Would it look like there was all of a sudden giant demand there? Would the list suddenly get 3 bigger? Now, the share size is no different, but the perception, other people looking at this would see this go, and they go, oh, time to sell or time to buy, whichever way we're going, okay? And they go, wow, look at all that demand. This price is going up. If I do that, what do I really want to do? I want the price to go up so I can sell into it, okay? Maybe I already own the stuff and I just want to drive it up another penny or another nickel so I can get the best price. If the market makers can do it, can I do it? Yeah. Now, you have to pick your spot. I mean, 600 shares isn't much and 3 names isn't much. But if you find the critical moment in a stock where it's trying to change price anyway, you can be a lever. You can make it happen. Okay? And you saw the list I showed you earlier. We don't have just 2 or 3. We may have 5 or 6 available to us depending on the brokerage that we go to. The most important thing about the ECNs is it allows us to cut out that darn middleman. Okay, here's some facts and figures here. ECN orders appear in the level 2 market maker window, but only the best of the best show up. So if we're looking at it and the market is currently, let's say, $10 by 10:01, okay, and Island is bidding 10, there may be another Island bidding $9.99, but we won't see him. We'll only see the best of the best. Okay, now when the 10 guy is filled, then the 9.99 guy becomes visible. When the 9.99 guy gets filled, the 9.98 becomes visible. The best shows then. Okay? There are 8 ECNs, one of which is owned by another. I'll show you that in a second. I need you guys to change this in your books. We just had a change in the market. It is now 6 of 8 are not SOZable. A second one, Brute, has accepted SOZability. I'll talk about what SOZ is here in a little bit. Okay, so this has now changed. It's hard to stay up with this stuff. It happens really fast, guys. This is only a couple weeks ago. So now it's 6 of 8 are not SOZable. Needless to say, as I said, this is a very, very powerful tool, trading tool, because we're going to an ever larger market and audience. Now, somebody asked earlier this morning, well, how do I become a member? Well, if you use one of the affiliated broker-dealers that OTA has alliances with, they're the ones that join or have these affiliations, these memberships. And the one we're going to look at today is just one of many good trading platforms out there. It's called Rush Trade. And it says down here, Rush Trade has direct links to Island and Arca. Well, I just showed you they've expanded their list significantly. They have Attain, and they have Inca, and they have Brute, and a couple of others now. It doesn't matter which one has the most. What you want is the top 1 or 2 ECNs. If you've got the biggest, you've got all the liquidity and the speed you need. You don't have to have all 8, is what I'm trying to tell you. That doesn't really do you any advantage. Okay, so here are our ECN symbols right now, okay? And we call them kind of funny names. Obviously, the first one is Island, ISLD, okay? But as I said, there's been a little bit of a mishap with NASDAQ, and they're currently routing their information through the Cincinnati Stock Exchange. So on a temporary basis, they're showing up as either CIN or CINN, depending on which platform you're on. Okay? Instinet bought Island in late '02, so they've owned Island now for about 1.5 years and are about ready to change its entire name to INET, I-N-E-T. Okay? This then brings up the second one. It's pronounced Inca, and it's owned 100% by Reuters company. Its full name is Instinet, okay, meaning institutional network, but as I already told you, we can now trade on it with as little as 100 shares round lot. Arca is not only an ECN, but it's also an exchange. And it got its full exchange status in 2003, and it can now go to any, if you're an exchange, you can accept orders from anywhere. That's what an exchange means. I'll exchange orders with anybody. Island can only accept orders from other island people because they're a membership. But Arca is an exchange. You can take it from a market maker, it can take it from Island, it can go out anywhere. You ready? Now, Arca has just recently, when it made its exchange, its symbol has changed to PSE, for Pacific Stock Exchange. So you might want to jot that down next to Arca here, okay, so you remember that because they're an exchange, NASDAQ, so why should we allow competition in our marketplace? You're a marketplace, go somewhere else. Arca said, we want to stay. They said, you can't. So they went out and they bought the Pacific Stock Exchange. Pacific Stock Exchange has been grandfathered and granted rights to have its display on NASDAQ. So you're kind of sneaking in the back door, if you will. Everybody got the program, why it's PSE? The next one is pronounced Attain. Okay, it really stands for All Tech Investments. You ready? How many people remember, it was about 3-4 years ago, that this crazy guy went into the Atlanta trading floor and shot the people? You guys remember that? It was down in Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia. Well, that was All Tech Securities, okay? They're the people who created the Attain ECN. As it turns out, All Tech Securities, the trading floors, have all but closed up, and strictly the business now is running the ECN. The next one down the list is called the Bloomberg Trade Book. We refer to it as B-Trade for obvious reasons. Everybody here know who Michael Bloomberg is? You know, a newspaper guy and now the mayor of New York City and all that. Okay, you've heard of Bloomberg News and Bloomberg TV and all that. Okay, so they operate an ECN. The next one on the list is pronounced Brut, just like the champagne. Stands for brass utility. Okay, Brut was pretty much the ECN of the market makers. And this allowed the market makers to swap shares anonymously and very, very quickly. So Merrill Lynch may say, call up Goldman Sachs and say, hey, listen, I need a cup of Cisco. Who would you think would bring it over? Brut. Okay? And we'll look at some facts and figures on some of these guys as we get into them. N-Trade is a very small ECN, doesn't have a whole lot of share size on it. N-Trade is Next Trade. Its only claim to fame is that it trades 24/6, I believe. Okay, I don't think it's 24/7 yet. So, Thursday morning at 2 o'clock, if you want to trade Microsoft and you're a member of Next Trade, you probably can find a trade. Now, understand, at 2 o'clock in the morning, what's it likely to be? Microsoft will probably be bid at 5 and offered at 50. It's trading at 25, huh? So it's not going to be a good deal, but if a hurricane blew the roof off your house and you had to liquidate to get some cash to put a roof back on, it's the only game in town. At least it's a game. And I think Allie asked me earlier, well, couldn't I get rid of it for something? Maybe not good, but yeah, if you had membership with Next Trade, you could get rid of it for something, whatever they're bidding or offering. And the last one is TRAC, which has a temporary symbol called TRAC, and it stands for TRAC. Sorry. Yeah, it's a hard one to remember, TRAC. Okay. They came on board in May of '02. They are a SOESable, and we'll get into SOES means Small Order Execution System, SOES. Now, I told you on the last page I wanted you to make a change from 7 to 6 of 8. The other one that has accepted SOESability is brass utility. So you might want to jot in SOES next to brass utility there. Okay, this is starting to become some dated information, but you'll see far and away why I say you only need the top 2 or 3. Okay, this is as of July of '03. Inca bought Island, and together they are handling about 165 billion shares in 3,000 plus stocks. The next closest is an exchange, Arca, handling less than 1/10 at 15 billion shares, okay, in 3,500 issues. And then you can see how fast it drops off from 165 to 15 to 5 to 4, and then it goes down into the hundreds of millions. So if you have Island or Inca or Arca or all 3 of them, you've got it covered, people. They're almost always going to be there with the right price. Okay, we were talking earlier about, well, what if I'm on a different system and I can't see the island at the inside? Well, that's pretty rare. But if you can't, then Arca or Inca will probably be there in any case. Okay, so if you have the top 2 or 3, you have plenty of liquidity. Now, this is something interesting. I'll just go through this real quick. A couple of years ago, they lifted Rule 390, which now allows New York stocks to be traded by virtually anybody. And as we can see on the New York, on the big board, the New York is handling about 80%, and NASDAQ itself plus the ECNs are taking about 20% of their revenue shares. So I think it was Bill asked earlier, he said, well, what about after hours on New York? Well, the ECNs are still trading, and they're still trading some New York stocks. Now, there's not a lot of volume in some of the New York, so not all of them are trade extended, but certainly I'll bet you IBM or Citicorp is trading right now. Okay. On NASDAQ, we look at it the other way around, and we can see that the ECNs have eaten up a huge amount. 31, 26, and 26, leaving only a little bit for the NASDAQ themselves. This created such a problem with the NASDAQ in the last couple of years that as NASDAQ, the market makers, have taken the ball and they say, well, you're not going to play fair. We're going to take our ball and we're going to go somewhere else. And they've created an entirely new marketplace called Super Montage. And they say, well, you guys can't come. You ECN, you riffraffs, okay, you can't join us. The problem is that they had to let Inca in because Instinet is one of the single biggest institutional trading firms. Okay, and didn't Inca buy Island? So, and do we have rights to use Inca? So we backdoored them already. We're already into super montage. Okay, so but this gives you an idea of how the pie is sliced up a little bit. And here's on this platform. Do you see how they put a pound sign behind the ECNs? Okay, now they take it off. Here's ARCA. Now remember, they don't have to be on both sides. It's just coincidence that they are. Here's Attain. Here's Brute up here and way down here. I just highlighted so you guys could spot these a little easier. Here's B-Trade and B-Trade. Now once again, we can make the platform put a pound sign behind it so that we can remember it. But people, I think it's within your powers. Here's N-Trade. You only see N-Trade on one side. I think it's within your powers to memorize these. Okay, there's only 8 sets of 4 letters, and you should be able to read them, name them, okay, and recognize them. But we can make the platform do it for you. Yes, sir.
Why would, like when we were looking at like N-Trade just a minute ago, you had them both at the top?
It was just coincidence, like I said, yeah.
What benefit would that be of them? I mean, I could see one high and one low like it was earlier.
Again, we're a club, David. Okay, here's our Ken Club. We're going to let you join. So now there's the 4 of us. Okay, you two think it's time to sell, and we think it's time to buy. That's all. Who's right? You're both right.
Individually, you chose your own price.
Yeah, we just you think it's time to sell. You bought the thing at $10. It's at 12. You want to sell and take your profit. I think it's going from 12 to 14. I'm going to buy it. So we're on both sides. It's just a difference of opinion. It's what makes a horse race, and of course, more importantly, makes the trading available. If we didn't have a difference of opinion, there'd be nobody selling to us. Is that right? Yeah. I mean, if everybody thinks it's going up, who's going to sell it?
Or nobody buys it.
Or nobody buys it. Yeah. If everybody thinks it's going up, who's going to buy it? Here's Morgan Stanley, and here's Morgan Stanley. He, by law, has to be there. If he's missing for more than 5 minutes, he's banned from ever trading this stock for the next 20 days, 1 trading month. N-Trade or Island, they can come and go as they please. We don't have any of those controls on us. They're ECNs. They're a different animal. And there are clubs. I can belong to Island. I can belong to N-Trade. I can belong to Attain. I can belong to Brute. I can belong to Inca. Okay? Right. And that's why I wanted to make sure you're clear on this, because these are going to be our avenues. Now, this particular chart is starting to get a little bit dated, okay? But I want you to look at this real quick, and when you get a chance, as I said, I need students. I need you guys to go out to each of these ECNs, tradearca.com, attain.com, ebrute.com, Bloomberg, etc. And you need to wander around and spend a half an hour, 45 minutes with each one of these guys. Why? Well, things change all the time. Fees, different capabilities, different benefits, different detriments. Okay? For instance, this particular table, you see where it says trade odd lots? What does that mean? Well, you can see that ARCA will trade odd lots. So that means if I have 117 shares, I can go to ARCA and get rid of it. But 2 down at Brute, it says no. So now if I have 117, I can sell 100. Now I have to spend another commission with somebody else to get rid of the other 17. Let me put it to you another way. As you look around the room, okay, there's only one major door out of this place. What if the entire ceiling erupted just like a broiler with fire? Would you rather have 1 door, or would you like to have 10? We'll all still go out the same one, but you'd like to have 10, wouldn't you? Okay, so here, can you see where it says no, no, depends on volume, depends on volume? Those are doors closing. Those are escape routes Those are opportunities lost if we have an odd lot. Oh, but Mike, I'm always going to have round lots. Well, boy, I sure like to say that's true, but Bill picked up on it, and a couple of the other you guys picked up on it when we were looking at that trade sheet. And he's going, look at that 27 and that 4, whatever it was, 77. What's that? It's an odd lot. It happens. You're going to go out there and say, I want 1,000 shares, or I want 500 shares, and they're going to fill you for what? 493. And are you going to hang out all day long trying to get the other 7, or are you going to move on and take your profit on the 497 or 93? That's what you're going to do, okay? You're going to get a lot of partial fills by using ECNs because there's a lot of small traders out there. And, you know, it comes part and parcel. Now, by the way, don't worry. If you order 500 and you get filled 250 and 250, it's only one commission. Up until you do what? You hit the cancel button and you try to buy the other 250. Now you're making a second trading decision for which you will pay a commission. But partial fills with most brokerages do not cost you anything. So I was trading live with the last class, and believe it or not, on 100 shares, it took me 6 tickets to get in and out on 100 shares. I mean, I got like 50 and 27 and 33, and then on the way out, it was something like, you know, 25, 25, and 50 to get out. It was amazing. 6 tickets to get out. Fortunately, it only cost me 2 transactions. 1 to get in, 1 to get out. Okay, moving right along. Now, again, this is, I don't care if you take notes or not. I just want you to listen to me, and I'll show you how complex this can get. This is not meant to confuse. If anything, it's meant to make you smile a little bit. The top one is Instinet. Inca is owned 100% by Reuters Group. Island was owned by Daytech Online Holdings and a couple of other people, including TD Waterhouse. Daytech was bought up by Ameritrade. Daytech spun off Island. Island was bought by Instinet. Okay? ReadyBook was owned 100% by Spear Leeds Kellogg. But you can see that Fidelity, DLJ, and Charles Schwab's all wanted a piece of the action. However, Goldman Sachs came along and bought up the whole shooting match, okay, and got rid of Ready. Okay, Ready has been bought by Arca now. They spun Ready off, and Arca bought it. Brute was owned by SunGard Data Systems, 56%. They're the ones that created the electronics and the code for Brute. But you can see that Knight Trimark, which is now Knight Securities, Merrill Lynch, Morgan Stanley, and Goldman Sachs all had a piece of the pie. A month and a half ago, 6 weeks ago, SunGard Data Systems bought these 4 out. And they own the whole thing 100% now. Then, of course, we have the Archipelago. As I said, it's not only an ECN, but it's also an exchange status now. Look who owns a piece of this. CNBC, E-Trade, Putnam Group, recently in the newspapers, Goldman Sachs. How about Instinet? Its competitor owns a piece of the Archipelago. People, if you don't understand this business is incestuous, I don't know what to tell you. This really gets to be balled up. Merrill Lynch, JP, Townsend Analytics is the guys who created the electronics for it. Townsend is one of the biggest financial data providers out there. Bloomberg Tradebook is still owned by Bloomberg. NextTrade is still owned by the individual investors here. Attain is owned 100% by Alltech Investment Groups, but Alltech Investment Group has become nothing but a manager of Attain. They don't have the investment group anymore. Okay? And then you'll love this one. MarketXT was owned by Tradescape. Tradescape spun MarketXT off as a separate company. E-Trade bought Tradescape. MarketXT changed its name to Lightspeed. It accepted SOs, and 6 months later, after garnering 40% of market share, went bankrupt. It doesn't exist anymore. That's how fast this stuff can change. Now, again, you're going, oh, wow, Mike, I didn't understand a thing you said. Don't worry about it. I just wanted you to see how complex this business world is. There's nothing you have to know. Okay, any questions on ECNs? Again, you do not have to join an ECN. All you have to do is open an account with a brokerage that has ECNs, and you're automatically a member. Okay? So all you do is look down the list and make sure you have 2 or 3 of the top biggest ones, you're good to go.
The brokerages put that out front, they tell you
It's right on their platform, and of course it's in their help menus and everything else. They brag about who they have, so you'll find it on their websites and everything. All cyber traders very proud they have all 8. Again, that's not why I would choose a platform. I mean, if everything else was equal, then I would rather have more than less, but that's not what's going to make my choice for me. Does everybody understand that? Good. Okay, now let's talk about some of the other things. I'm going to go through this pretty quick because people, these are incidental details. These are the flies in the ointment. We have market makers and we have ECNs, and then we have others who don't, they're important to understand, but we're never going to be them. Okay, so the first one is called an unlisted trading privilege. And there's right now only one of them. So here's another symbol that you have to memorize. MWSE, Midwest Stock Exchange. And it's a collaborative effort between the Kansas City Stock Exchange and the Chicago Stock Exchange. They petitioned NASDAQ and said, can we trade as a single entity on the NASDAQ? And NASDAQ said, yes, for a fee. Okay. Well, the problem here is what? Well, NWSE is not an ECN, so I can't get to them through my club membership, can I? And they're not really a market maker, so I have a hard time talking to them. When we get into routing, we're going to find the only way we can really get to them is through a route called SelectNet. Okay? And SelectNet is fairly expensive to use. So, again, right now, the only UTP up there is MWSE. So, by memorizing it, you know who it is, and therefore you don't have to worry about it. And here's what it looks like. Now, remember I told you that the platform can put pound signs, and you can see Inca, Brute, Island, Track, all with these pound signs behind them, so you remember that they're ECNs. It put a pound sign behind WSE because it knows it's not a market maker, but it doesn't know that if it's an ECN. So rather than do nothing, the platform put a pound sign behind MWSE, but it is not an ECN, it's a UTP. Everybody got it? Okay.
Remember, or if you have an account with Rush Trade or whoever,
Right.
maybe, this is really irrelevant to us because they are members. That's their job to be tied in with all these people.
Correct.
So it's not something that we really gotta.
That's what I said. You have to do nothing. All you have to do is open an account and look to see who they have. They've taken care of all the paperwork, the subscriptions, and all that. If you go to, AB Watley or Trade Portal or GE Trader or any of our other affiliates, they each have their set of ECNs. Now, they all have Island, they all have Arca, they all have Inca, okay? And one might have Brute and another one might have GlobeNet, you know? And that's not going to be the decider for you. So don't worry about that much. Now, the big problem here is what? What if MWSE was by himself at 3417? Okay, and I didn't want to use SelectNet because it's too expensive. Well, people, I can't sell then. I'm going to have to sell to the 3415s or 3416s below him and take a bigger hit because I just can't talk to MWSE because he's an exception. Okay, he's very hard to deal with. And that's the only thing you have to think about. Okay, we also have what they call NRs, or non-reporting agencies. How many people in here have heard of the QQQs? Everybody has, good. Okay, the Qs are an exchange-traded fund, and they mimic the NASDAQ 100. Okay, they're not really a true stock. They're what they consider a tracking stock, or it's a tracking fund. Alrighty? But the ETFs come from the American Stock Exchange. The NASDAQ traders wanted to trade these cubes, as we call them, the cubes, okay? And so we petitioned American Stock Exchange, Amex, and said, can we trade the Qs? And they said, sure. If you can trade the Qs on NASDAQ, can we come in and trade your stocks? And NASDAQ said, sure, for a fee. Okay, so now we allow Amex, another exchange, onto the thing as a trade-off for allowing us to trade the Qs and the FFFs and the HHHs and diamonds and spiders and a whole bunch of other things. On NASDAQ, we allowed Amex to come in and play. But the difference here is if Amex is trading Microsoft, Amex's trades show up on the American Stock Exchange prints, not on the NASDAQ. Now, they don't do enough to make any difference. Don't get excited about it. But that's why they call them non-reporting. They're not reporting on this exchange. They're reporting on a different exchange. Okay, but you see them here, don't you? You see Amex right here. Now, a lot of times Amex, because they're not a market maker and stuff, they don't move very fast. So sometimes they can cause an apparent locked market. A lot of times you'll see, Amex up in here at 48.69, and it's 68 by 67 in reality, and they just haven't cleared their symbol. Most times you can clear the symbol by just doing a quick refresh on your screen. But they stick a lot, and it looks like it's a cross market, but it's just stuck data because they're not really supposed to be there. They don't have all their electronic electrons all sorted out yet. And then this brings us to Super Montage. And Super Montage, as I said, is a brand new marketplace that the market makers created for themselves to do backdoor institutional trading. We were getting, the ECNs were taking so much market share that the market makers weren't making any money. So they just picked up and they started a new place. Now, Super Montage was supposed to be the nirvana. They were going to say, wow, this is going to regroup the entire market. You have a fractured market. You're all splintered. We're going to bring it under one house. Turns out that Super Montage didn't do that, and it's not doing so good because the ECNs have become so powerful. We see hints of Super Montage through the MPID size, S-I-Z-E. And this is an anonymous share size that are posted on Super Montage. I hate to say this, but it's kind of like a leftover basket. Merrill Lynch wants to trade 10,000 shares, and they get filled for 9,500, and now they have 500 shares left over, and they throw it in this bucket anonymously. And this Goldman Sachs does the same thing, and pretty soon the bucket has 3,000 shares in it at a price, but nobody really knows who they are. Of course, the owners know who they are, but the bucket is just an anonymous bucket. And you can buy out of it or sell into it as you like. You ready? But it's just kind of like a leftovers bucket. We can only get to it through SelectNet and maybe through Inca. Now the next one is really a communications error. The symbol ADFN stands for Alternate Display Facility NASDAQ. Okay? Inca, as I already told you, is not only on the NASDAQ, but because it's one of the biggest institutional traders, is on Super Montage. So they have to be able to maintain a quote on two places. So they created this mirror image of them, but it bleeds back through onto level 2. And we can see this ghost image called ADF or ADFN. Okay, and we'll see that in a moment.